Good evening. This is Dr. Bill Wyatt again, and I want to talk a little bit this evening on mouth breathing and its long-term effect. This is no joke. I mean, a person can start mouth breathing, and I think mouth breathing comes about in a lot of cases by the child not nursing long enough. If the child nurses for a good length of time, even though it gets very little milk or anything like that, he has to breathe through his nose or his or her nose, and that develops that airway early. I'm going to put some videos on showing as much as I can about that, but right now I'm going to show you an adult who had to be a mouth breather. I don't know any other thing that would cause his teeth to be like that. So let's get in here. I don't have all the stuff on this man, but I do have enough here to show you that this is caused by mouth breathing, and the develop of the mandibular arch is wider than the upper arch. So let's take a look here. He's a nice looking guy. He's got a little excess vertical height of the face down here like that, and it really should be off somewhere where there would be thirds. However, that's not a real bad thing, but as you open the mouth, in other words, you change the distance between your chin and your nose, your chin drops back. And after you get to a certain point in here, if you drop a millimeter, you go back a millimeter. That's just a halfway point in there. Now, he didn't get that far, but he's got an excess amount of lower third of the face, and its jaw is back further than it should be. So let's get on with the case here. And I've got several views of it, and you can tell the upper teeth don't fit together. He's got a space in there where he breathes through that area, and we look at it from the side, and the chin really would be out. If we could shorten it, son, it swings from some point up here. If you close it down some, it would move forward some in here, and looks like you have more of a chin. Your chin isn't that necessarily that much shorter in there. Now, when we look at it from another angle, you can see again, and I took several pictures of it. Now, when I look at his models, the lower models are not as wide as I normally see them, but they are out past the contact point of the upper teeth. Now he's got some habit, maybe sleeping or pressing on these teeth in here, which they would be further out if the tongue was the only force in there that were pushing the teeth out, and they're crowded from the front side, as you obviously can see. Now in this picture right here, this is virtually a class 1 relation. See, the lower molar is supposed to be in this area, and this cusp should touch this tooth back here, so that's class 1. But we get out here to the front, and if you're a mouth breather, a lot of you frequently or swallow improperly. And if you swallow and don't bite your teeth together, you can try it, but there'll be very few people that look at this that can swallow and not bite your teeth together. And if you swallow and don't bite your teeth, you have to suck your lips under like that, and so the lip pressure push these teeth back from this improper swallow, or this is what we assume happened in this particular case. It does in many many cases. There are other things that can do that by sucking on your thumb or putting a musical instrument and holding it wrong, things that can do this. But look now, the lower teeth, even though they're in further than they ought to be, like he may sleep on this side right here, yet the cusp of the upper teeth are out over on the edge. Now this tooth is not, it came in later, but this is pretty far out in here where the upper teeth are kind of going inside the lower arch right there. It's too narrow. Now we look at the thing from the front and you can see a little bit more about it. Now this is straight on from the front and the tongue comes up through here. He's got a tongue thrust, so he has a swallow problem, and this is stuck with him throughout his, he's 25 or 6, I think, at this time. Now these upper teeth are out over these, but not here in the back and in this area right here. So that, let me get this thing back. I don't want it copying and writing everything down that we say. Now let's go to the next view here on the right side of the mouth. It too is in class 1 molar relation, but the inside, the cusp are inside on the upper and outside on the lower, and it should be opposite of that. And then we've got these teeth that are squished back by the lip pressure and the tongue pressing up in that area, and he's still got that open bite in that fashion. All right, when we look at it from the back side, we see that these teeth don't show up that far out in front of the lower teeth, but they are. And so we can see that the lower teeth are almost out over the sides in the upper teeth, kind of indicating a mouth breather. Now I took a measuring device here, and this was the width of the upper arch, and I tried to put this as close as I could in here and look at it later on. And I think our needle went around once, and then it's got about, looks like about 8 units or millimeters out in that side. Now we'll do this same thing to the arch after we finished. There is the arch after we widen it. Now we had a palatal separator in on this man, which I don't show, but I've got a lot of videos of palatal separation on adults where we had to put spring between the upper centrals to widen them out. And now here we put that on, and the needle went from here all the way around to this point, and so it's that much, whatever that measurement is in there, it's wider in here, and these others were back like that. So in other words, we went in and separated the palate and tried to restore the maxilla like it originally was, but this is much harder to do. Now, if you're working with children, you're a pediatric dentist, you should know how to do that. I mean, you really should know how to expand the palate and get it out of this situation where the tongue is widening the lower arch more than the upper arch, and do it real young. You don't have near the problem that you have when the person gets older. So it's what I want to point out here, that a stitch in time saves 9. You can, that's an old saying that my grandmother taught me, and so it works in orthodontics also. Let's go ahead now to, he's 29 7 and 5 months now, and we're working on this. Now, this is his teeth. You can just see the situation of the teeth right here, and the upper teeth should be way out over the lower teeth. It should be meeting good, so the pressure of the tongue inside is not where it should be, and it is being used also in a tongue thrust kind of situation, and he's pulling back on these teeth, pushing out on these to some extent. He's not putting the tongue up in the roof of the mouth, widening this. The tongue stays down here. And if you're a mouth breather, you cannot breathe without breathing the air over the top of your tongue, and your tongue has to be in the lower arch. And if you think the tongue won't widen the arch out, you're greatly mistaken. The tongue can just do all sorts of things in here to you. It is a pretty powerful pressure inside the mouth. And I've got a video of a lady who had the tongue removed and the teeth collapsed. She had cancer of the tongue, of course. Okay, this is one side and the other. I need to get on with this, but you can see the upper arch here just really ought to be out wider in here and line all these teeth up. And that's what we do when we get somebody that's breathing through the mouth, and the lower arch is widened out and the upper arch is not, and they have a crossbite. A lot of teeth will shift their jaw to one side so they can chew better, and then many of them just have what we call a bilateral crossbite, or you just have a crossbite on one side of the mouth because you shifted your jaw. But if you shift your jaw and stay there very long, your condyles and your fossa all change. You watch people lecturing on television where you can see their face real good, and you'll see a lot of them with the jaw to one side or the other, and that was caused by early expansion of the lower jaw. Maybe they got over it and it had a different effect on them if it was just smaller amount of time there. But you can see how wide this is. Now here's the tongue. If it were used properly in here, these teeth would be out wider in here. And if it were used properly, the upper teeth would be a lot wider and they would fit over the lower teeth right here. Now I am a moderate mouth breather, and my lower teeth have been shoved out to where my upper teeth come in like this, and my lower teeth are out here like this, and I bite my cheeks in here. If the lower tooth was inside this, the upper tooth coming down keeps you from biting the cheek. And so when your lower teeth go out like this, you'll bite your cheek. And I bite the heck out of my cheek all the time. So I know darn good and well that's one of the causes that I have. All right, we've got in here and we put a palatal separator in on this young man. He was 25 or 27, I think, when we did this. And we spread these teeth out in here. And and working with this, we have pressure, like if you put a lot of pressure between the two centrals on, say, a 30-year-old, a late 30-year-old, or a 40-year-old person wanting to expand their palate, and you've got a lot of pressure from the palatal separator, and you put it on the teeth down here, it puts an awful strain on those teeth. So I thought if you put a tad in the bone structure up here, get some good hard cortical bone, and had a curved wire in there that would slip, and then you put a lot of spring pressure in there, that pressure working on those tads would have more effect than putting spring between the centrals right here. But the man that wrote the book on palatal separation told me that they can only do it on about 17 or 18. And I have literally had people have their palate separated when they were in their early 40s even. And that was with spring between the centrals in here. So that's just another little added thing to tell you. This is how we correct the breathing mechanism in the nasal airway when we get a person later in life that has been a mouth breather and the upper palate hasn't separated and they're mouth breathers. We can go in and spread that out and get them breathing properly, and then the lower arch will shrink down a little bit. This one didn't do much. It don't depend on very much. So go ahead and widen the upper arch even more than we did here. Now here we're getting some teeth in place and separation and just regular routine orthodontics now. We changed the tip on this tooth. You see, it went this way. We went down and up and down and back up again. And that makes the root of this tooth go from something like this over to something like that. Now, so if you see these little bends in the archway, they're there for some reason. And there's nobody that can make a bracket and put a bracket on the tooth and have it just put a wire in there on all their teeth and line them up properly, because there are going to be differences in every one of them. So learn to bend the wire to make the tooth do what you want it to do. Now here we put a little deal like that on it, and now we can tie that back if we need to. We didn't in this particular case. We've got what we call an omega here on the arch wire, the omega goes forward, and you tie into that and push on this real hard. And you can tighten the arch wire in there, and you can squeeze space together on an arch wire like that. And all this stuff about not the arch wire not moving in the bracket. There's very few brackets to be pinched down unless they're really crimped hard. Now here we change the arch, you see, and we move these teeth forward. Now the crown is in the air, the root's in the bone. As we tip them, the tooth tends to move in a forward direction. That's the same thing. Now we did a little bit of that down here with the bottom arch. Now I didn't want to spend my time on the regular orthodontic part here, but we wanted to go into, now here's where my palatal separator was attached, and it was on these two teeth and went back against the other teeth in there. And you see this arch is much wider, and I've got another picture, but it has a little defect on that side. So this is much wider than the original model, which I'm going to show you at the end of the case. Now here's the lower arch, and then we've lined it all up and brought the teeth forward. And this is 07, and he's 25 years old. I think we started in 06. Now as we line this up and level the arches out, and we get his palate separated and get it where he can breathe better and function better, that's what we're after. If I don't get him functioning correctly, he would have to wear retainers for the rest of his life. I don't care who you are. And these it's stupid to tell somebody, well, you wear this 6 weeks or 2 months or a half a year, and then you'll be through with it. That is a bunch of bull. I mean, if you've got some reason for the teeth being crooked and you haven't gotten to the cause of the malocclusion and you still got that cause, you have to wear retention or something to hold it there for as long as that person's living, as far as I can tell. And I do believe that's a fact. I don't mean to get irritated with it, but here we put a palatal separator in. This would have been much nicer if somebody had caught this young man when he was real young and widened the palate and taught him how to breathe properly. It wouldn't have been that way. And this is the lower arch again, and this is 08, and we're still working on him. I've got the roots of the teeth. We can just do anything you want to with the roots of the teeth. And as you put a bend like this in the tooth may be going this way, and you put this bend, it makes the tooth go this way. Now the root is down here in the bone. It doesn't move near as easily as the crown. So the tooth is going to move forward in the arch when you put this type of bend in it. In other words, you can move the teeth in the arch back and forth a good little bit if you need to. If you need to move the upper arch out further than the lower, you can put a reverse of this and it'll move the teeth back in the arch too. So now if we move them out here, we add space, we put this interlacing, you see, in there. You don't even have to take that off when you change it. You take the arch wire out without doing that. Okay. Well, here's this. This is tied back, you see, back against the second molar back there. All right. Now this is a distorted picture right here. This actually went on out kind of like this does over here. But you can see a distortion in the mirror somewhere there. Messed up that, but I'll show it again later. Now there's your upper arch right there. And there is the lower arch. Now wait a minute, let me go back. Now that's the upper arch when we started, and this is the upper arch at this point, except it's not as good as the picture of the upper arch here. If you look at this arch right here, this is a better picture. It's much wider than that. Now, this is caused by mouth breathing. If we can get control of mouth breathing, it does a tremendous amount of good in the life of the person. In other words, if you breathe through your nose, you filter the air, you warm it to body temperature, you humidify the air so it doesn't dry your throat out and everything. And it filters out all kinds of mess that goes out that you catch in your nose. Now, if I've been in dirty places where the dust was everywhere. Boy, I tried to breathe through my nose. I didn't want to suck that crud down in my lungs. And you go back out, you blow your nose, and you got a bunch of junk in the handkerchief when you blow your nose on. Your nose filters all this. I had a kid one time that was having lung problems. We spread the palate out. We got him breathing through his nose, and he quit having problems with his lungs. So the things in orthodontics affect your whole life, not only just your appearance and your personality, but they have effect on many, many things. So I thank you for watching this, and I hope you get something out of it that you need to get at these problems real young. And that's why pediatric dentists should know more orthodontics than they do. Now they get together and maybe 2 or 3 pediatric dentists will hire an orthodontist. The orthodontic schools, to my knowledge, at least when I started this preventive and interceptive stuff, do very little of this preventive and interceptive. They just want to take them when they're 12 and do them, or after that, and do them. And then they don't work on older people. Hardly any school teaches any adult orthodontics. There's just tons of adult orthodontics out there that needs to be done, and these people have the money to do it and have the desire and everything like this. I send these videos go all over the place, and I have people calling back, well, where can I go get somebody to do this? God, I don't know. I mean, the schools here that I know about teach very little adult orthodontics. And the idea that you can straighten everything in there with a bunch of plastic covers, you can do a little bit with them, but they're just one tool in orthodontics. All right, I better shut up over that. I thank you for watching this. I hope you've got something out of it worth sitting down and doing this. I got a note from a lady the other day, said, well, she couldn't do what she normally does because of the virus we have now, and she had to be forced to stay home. Said, I just started going through all your videos, and I have learned so much orthodontics, and I thank you for putting these out here. So maybe this virus stuff has helped people stay home and do some things that they wouldn't do normally. So I'm going to say good night, and it is night here now. And thank you for watching, and I want you to join our group and subscribe to our program. We are glad to have it, and we want to spread this stuff all over the world if possible.